Hi, everyone. My name is Tao Yeager. I'm a product manager for GitLab Verify Continuous Integration. And I'm going to do a speed run about a feature that we implemented in 13.8 to restrict who can override variables. First, let's take a step back and talk about what it means to override a variable. Documented here are the 6 ways that you can override a variable. Variables are usually defined in the GitLab-ci.yaml file. And there will be times when you may want to run variables that are slightly different than what's defined in the CI YAML file for a particular branch. So let's say you want to input variables that are specific to the test environment. Now, given that is the default behavior where you can pass through different variables than what is the standard defined in the CI configuration, there are times where you want to only allow users with maintainer role to set those variables. It's particularly relevant if you choose to store your CI configs in a different repository. A lot of times the reason you do that is to prevent changes to the variables that are run on your more protected environments, let's say master. And the way you would do that is setting this new attribute on the project, which the default is that it's disabled by default, but you can change that false to true. And in doing that, restrict only to the maintainer or owner role, maintainer or above roles to be able to set these variables. So what you would do, and again, this is, if you look at the attributes of a project that you can edit, and the method would be to do a put, you see that the values that are accepted for restricting the user-defined variable is a Boolean, so it accepted true or false. And again, this is with only setting it to true would allow only maintainers to pass user-defined variables. So what I'm going to do is I have a test project here that we're going to play with. And first thing, using Postman, I'm going to go out there. Let me copy the project ID. And we're going to go out and confirm that that project does in fact have the default value of false for that attribute. Everything's correct. And by the way, I am currently using the token that is relevant for the owner. I took it from the token is tied to the owner of this project. So they're able to make some of these API calls. So I do know that that attribute is in line 90. And here we see it here. Okay, so it is defaulted to false. So for this project, there's a few test members. I have a test member here, which is Tau tester 1. I'm going to give that tester the developer role so that we can demonstrate that as a developer, they are able to change the variables when the current value is false, and then we're going to change it to true, and this same user with the developer role should not be able to inject different variables. So I'm logged in as Tau tester. Let me just refresh real quick. And I'm going to go to that test project, which is project 1, part of TY group. I'm going to go to the variable, to the pipelines page, click on run pipeline. I'm not going to demo all of the possible ways that you can override the variables, but I'll just do number 1, manually running it in the UI. Let me go back. So this is, let me confirm, this is Tau tester 1 running. Let me just run it on the test environment. And I'm going to put in some variable, happy trails. I'll just put in 1. And it should allow me to trigger the pipeline. There it is. The pipeline is running with these 2 tests in progress, and we'll just ignore that the system test job failed. Okay. Now, if I go back, I'll just cancel this. I don't need that to run. We'll just conserve resources there. If I go back, before I try to trigger on the same environment to make it the same test, before I try to trigger that, I am going to change the, in Postman, change this to true. So I'll just copy this. I'll add in a parameter. That one, I'm going to make the value true. And I'm going to do a put call. Again, I'm doing this because when you're making changes to edit a project, it is a put, the project, the ID of the project, and then the actual attribute. So I have here in the request, the project ID, and then this attribute, which is the query parameter to set to true. I'm going to send it. Okay, status code 200, okay. We'll scroll to line 90, and now we see that restrict user is set to true. So going back to our user, confirming this is Tau tester1 user, who now still has, let me confirm, still has just a developer role. I am going to have try to do the same thing. I should get an error. Trails run. There we go. Pipeline cannot run, insufficient permissions to set pipeline variables. So we know that now with this project attribute being true to restrict user-defined variables, developer roles cannot change the variables on when they manually run a pipeline, but I should be able to run the pipeline with different variables as a maintainer. So I will give Tau Tester the maintainer role now. I'll go back here. Let me just refresh and come back in case I need to do that. Let me do it on test again to do the same test. Let's see. Same variable. And this should go through. Awesome, no error. And it started the pipeline to run. It's a quick pause, and within 30 seconds, those tests should start running. So I did confirm that as this logged in user, Tau tester1, who has the maintainer role, I'm able to trigger the pipeline even when the restrict user defined variable is set to true. So now you know that if you want to really lock down strict controls to not only where your CI configs are stored, but also who can change the variables when running pipelines through any of these 6 methods, you can use this setting in order to, this setting here on the project, this attribute, to make it even more secure. Hope that helps.